Blade stopped an inch from my throat, and the entire throne room fell silent. "He is human," Councillor Velanthi spat, his silver eyes burning with contempt. "You would bond with vermin?" High Queen Seylitha rose from her obsidian throne, her movement so fluid it seemed to defy gravity. The bioluminescent patterns on her violet skin pulsed with a light I had learned to recognize as barely contained fury. In the 3 months since I had been gifted to her court as a diplomatic gesture, a polite term for hostage, I had never seen her intervene in anything. Until now. "Remove your blade from my property, Councillor." Her voice was silk wrapped around steel. "Or I will remove your hand from your body." Velanthi hesitated. The Velanthi were a proud species, their entire civilization built on rigid hierarchies and the accumulation of honor. To threaten a High Councilor was unprecedented. To do so over a human was unthinkable. "Your Radiance," he said carefully, lowering his weapon. "Surely you see the absurdity. The Terran Collective sent him as an insult. A nobody. A maintenance technician with no family, no status, no value. And the rumors that you have taken him into your private chambers are none of your concern." Seylitha descended the steps from her throne, each footfall echoing in the cavernous hall. "What happens in my chambers is my prerogative. Or have you forgotten who sits upon the throne of 10,000 suns?" I remained perfectly still, my heart hammering against my ribs. The other courtiers watched with a mixture of horror and fascination, the same way one might watch a star collapse into itself. I was nobody, just as Velanthi said. A maintenance tech from the orbital stations of Europa, sent here because I had no family who would miss me, no connections who would demand my return. What they didn't know, what even Seylitha hadn't known until 2 weeks ago, was why I had no family. Queen stopped in front of Velanthi, and despite being a head shorter than him, she seemed to tower over the Councillor. "You speak of value," she said quietly. "Tell me, Councillor, what value did the court place on me when my bonded mate was executed for treason he did not commit? What value did they place on me when I was stripped of my children, and told to be grateful I retained my throne?" Vethras's silver skin paled to white. "Your Radiance, that was 20 cycles ago." "Yes. I remember every day." She turned her back on him, a gesture of absolute dismissal in Velanthi culture. "The human stays. This discussion is over." She walked past me without a glance, but her fingers brushed against mine, so briefly that no one else could have seen it. A signal. "Wait." The court dispersed in whispers, and I was left standing alone in the center of the throne room, feeling the weight of 100 hostile stares. That night when the twin moons of Velanthi Prime hung low over the crystalline spires, a servant came to my quarters. "The Queen requests your presence." Her private chambers were nothing like the cold grandeur of the throne room. Soft lights, flowing fabrics, and something that might have been music played at the edge of hearing. Seylitha stood by the window, her back to me, still wearing the formal robes of her station. "You should not have defended me," I said. "No," she agreed without turning. "I should not have. They will use it against you. The council already questions your judgment. If they believe you have formed an attachment to a human, have I?" The question hung in the air between us. I thought of the past weeks, the conversations that had started as curiosity and become something else. The way she listened when I spoke of Earth, of my sister, of the accident that had taken everything from me. The way her hand had found mine in the dark of her chambers, neither of us acknowledging it, both of us unwilling to let go. "I don't know what you have done," I said honestly. "But I know what I have done. And I know it's dangerous for you." She finally turned. In the dim light, the patterns on her skin glowed softly, illuminating features that humans might have called beautiful, but that I had come to see as something more familiar. "Safe. My mate was innocent," she said. "The council fabricated evidence to control me. They took my children and placed them in protective custody across the empire. For 20 cycles, I have ruled as they wished, spoken as they wished, existed as they wished." She crossed the room toward me, "And then they send me you. A human. A nothing. Someone so far beneath notice that they thought I would ignore you entirely. Why didn't you?" She stopped an arm's length away. "Because on your first night here, when you thought no one was watching, you found a dying garden tender in the lower halls. A servant. Someone even more beneath notice than you. And you stayed with her until she passed." I remembered. The old Velanthi woman, her bioluminescence fading alone in a corridor. I had held her hand because no one should die alone. Because I knew what it felt like to watch someone slip away with no one there. "That meant nothing to anyone else," I said. "It meant everything to me." Seylitha's voice cracked. The first time I had ever heard it waver. "Do you understand? 20 cycles, and no one in this court has shown kindness without expectation. No one has touched me without wanting something. And then you, this human they sent as garbage, you showed more honor than every noble in my kingdom combined." "Seylitha." She closed the distance between us, her hands rising to cup my face. Her touch was cool, her fingers trembling slightly. "If you die, I'll burn the galaxy," she whispered. "Every star, every world, everything they have built on their lies and their cruelty. I will end it all." I looked into her eyes, those strange, beautiful eyes that held 20 years of grief and rage, and desperate, terrified hope. "I believe you," I said. And I did. The bonding declaration sent shockwaves through the Empire. I stood beside Seylitha in the Hall of Ancestors, surrounded by holographic projections of every Velanthi ruler for the past 10,000 years, as she announced her intention to take a human as her bonded mate. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Then the chaos began. "This is madness." Lord Kethrin, eldest of the High Council, slammed his fist against his seat. "The bloodline of the Radiant Throne cannot be polluted with alien genetics." "The Radiant Throne's bloodline was severed 20 cycles ago," Seylitha replied calmly. "When you murdered my mate and scattered my children across the stars. What bloodline do you imagine you were protecting? Your radiance? Furthermore," she continued, "I have consulted the ancient laws. There is no prohibition against bonding with non-Velanthi. The restriction exists only in custom, not in code." "Custom is law," another councillor shouted. "Custom is habit dressed in ceremony." Seylitha's patterns flared bright enough to make me squint. "I am not asking for permission. I am informing you of my decision. The bonding ceremony will take place at the next lunar conjunction. And if we refuse to recognize it?" Vethras asked, his voice dangerously soft. Seylitha smiled, a cold, terrible expression I had never seen before. "Then I will invoke the right of dissolution and disband the council entirely. A power I have held since my coronation but never used. Do you wish to test whether I am willing to use it now?" The council exchanged glances. I could see calculations happening behind their silver eyes, alliances being weighed, risks being measured. "You have 3 days to accept my choice," Seylitha said. "Use them wisely." She swept from the hall, and I followed, ignoring the whispers that trailed behind us like poison smoke. In the corridor, away from watching eyes, her composure cracked. "That was terrifying," she breathed, pressing her back against the wall. "You were magnificent. I was bluffing. The right of dissolution would trigger a civil war. I could never." She stopped, looking at me. "Why are you smiling?" "Because you're shaking." I reached out and took her hands in mine. "The untouchable High Queen of Velanthi Prime, terror of the council, is shaking like a leaf. This amuses you, Noel." I lifted her hands and pressed them against my chest, where my own heart was racing. "It makes me feel less alone." Her expression softened. The glow beneath her skin shifted from white-hot anger to something gentler, warmer. In the months I had spent learning to read her, I had come to understand that Velanthi communicated as much through their bioluminescence as through words, and right now, she was telling me things she could never say aloud. "The council will not accept this," she said quietly. "I know. They will try to kill you. Possibly me as well. I know. And yet you stay." I thought of Europa, of the cold orbital stations where I had spent my life fixing systems that no one cared about, invisible in a universe full of invisible people. I thought of my sister, of the decompression accident that had taken her while I was 3 decks away, unable to reach her in time. I thought of the years since, the emptiness, the going through motions, the waiting for something that felt like living. "I have spent years being careful," I said. "Being safe. Staying small so nothing could hurt me again." I squeezed her hands. It didn't work. The universe hurt me anyway. At least this time I'm choosing what I risk myself for. Seylitha was silent for a long moment. Then she leaned forward, resting her forehead against mine. A Velanthi gesture of absolute trust that I had only ever seen between parents and children. "You are the strangest creature I have ever known," she murmured. "I'm human. We're all strange." "Yes." Her lips curved into something approaching a real smile. "I'm beginning to understand why your species survived long enough to reach the stars." 3 days passed in a blur of preparation and tension. The council neither accepted nor rejected Seylitha's declaration, a silence that everyone understood as plotting time. I was assigned guards, then more guards, then an entire security detail that followed me everywhere except Seylitha's chambers. On the second night, I woke to find her sitting at the edge of my bed, watching me sleep. "That's unsettling," I said, sitting up. "Velanthi do not sleep as humans do. I forget sometimes that you find stillness disturbing." She didn't move from her position. In the darkness, her patterns provided the only light, a soft violet glow that made shadows dance across the walls. "I was thinking about what you told me, about your sister." My chest tightened. "What about her? You said you couldn't reach her in time, that you were 3 decks away when the accident happened." She paused. "You also said you spent years fixing systems that no one cared about." "I believe you were fixing them because you cared. Because you hoped that if everything worked correctly, no one else would die the way she did." I said nothing. The words were caught somewhere between my heart and my throat. "That is not the behavior of a nobody, Marcus." It was the first time she had used my name. "That is the behavior of someone who carries the weight of a universe on his shoulders and refuses to put it down, even when it crushes him. It was my job I managed. That's all. No." She reached out and touched my face, her palm cool against my cheek. It was your purpose, and now I think you are searching for a new one. Have I found it? She leaned closer, her breath warm against my lips. Ask me again after the ceremony, if we survive it. The kiss was soft, tentative, an answer and a question all at once. When she pulled away, her patterns were glowing brighter than I had ever seen them. Sleep, she said, rising. Tomorrow we make history, or we die. Either way, I would prefer you rested. She left before I could respond, and I lay in the darkness for a long time, my heart full of something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. They came for me on the morning of the ceremony. I woke to the sound of my guards dying, quick, efficient, almost silent. The door to my chambers slid open, and 5 figures in black stepped inside. Their bioluminescence dampened to nearly nothing. Assassins. I had expected them. Seylitha had expected them. What we hadn't expected was that they would come for me instead of her. Queen's pet, the lead assassin said, stepping forward. You have caused considerable trouble. I'm a maintenance technician. Causing trouble is above my pay grade. Humor. Darciu. Your species is known for it. He raised a weapon. Something sleek and Velanthi that probably caused a painful death. The council sends its regards. Wait. I held up my hands. Before you kill me, can I ask one question? The assassin paused, surprised. Perhaps his targets usually begged or fought. Ask, why me? If you want to control Seylitha, why not just kill her and install someone more compliant, because she is the last of the true bloodline. Kill her, and we lose legitimacy. But kill you. He smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. Kill you, and we break her. Again. I understood then. This wasn't about politics or bloodlines or even power. This was about punishment. Seylitha had defied them, had chosen her own path, and they intended to make her suffer for it. Just like before. You're monsters, I said quietly. We are Velanthi. We do what is necessary. The weapon hummed to life. I closed my eyes. The explosion knocked me off my feet. When I opened my eyes again, the assassins were down, not dead but stunned, writhing on the floor in obvious pain. Standing in the doorway, her entire body blazing with light so bright it hurt to look at, was Seylitha. She was wearing armor. Ancient ceremonial armor, the kind I had seen only in historical records, designed for the warrior queens of old Velanthi, before the council had civilized the monarchy into powerlessness. You miscalculated, she said to the late assassin, her voice echoing with harmonic undertones I had never heard before. You assumed I would stay in the ceremonial chambers, playing my role, while you murdered the only thing I've left to lose. Your radiance. She raised her hand, and the assassin screamed. The light on his skin flickered wildly, his patterns going haywire. Neural disruption, she said calmly. A forbidden technique, known only to the royal bloodline. My grandmother taught it to me when I was a child before the council decided such knowledge was too dangerous for queens to possess. She stepped closer, and the assassin's screaming intensified. Shall I show you what else they forbade me from learning, Seylitha? I struggled to my feet. Stop. She didn't turn. They tried to kill you. I know. And they failed. Because of you. I moved toward her carefully, ignoring the pain in my ribs where I had hit the floor. But if you kill them like this, if you become what they fear, you prove them right. Perhaps they should fear me. Perhaps. But that's not why I stopped, searching for the right words. That's not the person I fell in love with. The light around her flickered. Her hand dropped slightly. You have not said that before, she said quietly. I know. I was afraid. I reached her side and gently touched her arm. I lost someone once because I couldn't get to her in time. I swore I would never let myself care that much again, because the alternative was too painful to survive. The assassin had stopped screaming, his body twitching on the floor. But you were right what you said, I continued. I've been carrying weight I didn't need to carry. Punishing myself for something that wasn't my fault. And then I met you. This terrifying, broken, beautiful queen who looked at a nobody and saw something worth saving. Seylitha turned to face me. The blazing light had faded to something softer, still bright, but warm instead of terrible. They will come again, she said. The council will not stop. I know. I cannot always protect you. I know that too. I took her hand. The same gesture she had made in the throne room, so many months ago. But I would rather die at your side than live another day without you. Her patterns shifted through colors I had no names for, emotions too complex for human understanding, expressed in light. I have been alone for 20 cycles, she whispered. I had forgotten what it felt like to be seen. I see you, I said. All of you. Queen and the woman. The warrior and the mother. The rage and the grief. I lifted her hand to my lips. I see you, Seylitha. And I'm not going anywhere. She broke then, not dramatically, not with wailing or tears, but with a single shuddering breath that seemed to release decades of pain. She pulled me into her arms and held on as if I were the only solid thing in a collapsing universe. We stood there for a long time, surrounded by groaning assassins and the debris of violence, holding each other in the light of her impossible glow. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were clear, her expression resolved. "The ceremony," she said. "Still happening, still happening." She glanced at the assassins. "But first we send a message." The hall of bonding was filled to capacity. Every noble house had sent representatives. Every world in the Velanthi sovereignty had observers present. Councils sat in their elevated seats, their faces carefully neutral, watching as Seylitha and I approached the altar of unity. The assassins had been displayed at the entrance, bound, dampened, and bearing holographic evidence of their crimes and their employers. The message was unmistakable. Try again, and the consequences will be public. It wasn't elegant politics. It wasn't subtle. But it was effective. "Nervous?" Seylitha murmured as we walked. "Terrified," I admitted. "Good. If you were calm, I would worry you had lost your mind." The ceremony itself was ancient. Older than the council, older than the sovereignty, dating back to a time when Velanthi were warriors and poets instead of politicians. We exchanged vows in the old language, words I had spent weeks memorizing with Seylitha's patient guidance. We shared ritual food. We allowed our blood to mingle in the chalice of union, a moment that made several councillors visibly uncomfortable, as if human blood might contaminate the sacred vessel. But the final element was what I had been waiting for. "In the tradition of our ancestors," Seylitha announced, her voice carrying through the hall, "the bonded pair shall speak their truth. Let all who witness understand the nature of this union." She turned to face me, and despite the thousands watching, it felt like we were alone. "Marcus Cole," she said, maintenance technician. "Refugee. Survivor. When the humans sent you to my court, they thought they were discarding you. They were wrong. You are not disposable. You are not nothing." Her patterns blazed with that warm light I had come to love. "You are the kindest soul I have ever known, in a universe that has shown me precious little kindness. You are my choice, my partner, my equal." The hall murmured at that last word. Velanthi did not speak of equals. Their entire society was built on hierarchy, on knowing one's place. "I do not take you as a possession," Seylitha continued, her voice rising. "I do not claim you as property. I choose you as my mate, my companion, my beloved. And I make this promise before all who witness. Any who threaten you threaten me. Any who harm you answer to me." She smiled, that real smile I had seen only in private, now displayed for an entire empire. "And as I told you once before, if you die, I will burn the galaxy. Not as a threat, but as a truth. Because a universe without you in it is not a universe worth preserving." The silence that followed was absolute. Then, it was my turn. I had prepared words. Careful diplomatic words designed to reassure the council and calm the noble houses. But standing there, looking at this impossible woman who had seen through every wall I had built, I threw them all away. "I'm not a poet," I said. "I'm not a diplomat or a warrior, or anyone important. 3 months ago, I was fixing water recyclers on Europa, trying not to think about everything I had lost. I had given up on meaning, on connection, on love. I reached out and took her hands, and then I met you. Queen who had lost everything and refused to stop fighting. A woman who had been broken by the people who should have protected her, and somehow stayed whole. You showed me that survival isn't enough. That living means risking, means caring, means letting yourself love even when it terrifies you." I squeezed her fingers. "I can't promise to protect you from your enemies. I ain't promise power or status or anything the Velanthi value. But I can promise this. I will never leave you. I will never abandon you. I will stay by your side until the stars themselves burn out, and then I will find a way to stay longer." Her patterns were doing something extraordinary, shifting through spectrums of color that made several nearby Velanthi gasp. "You believed me," she whispered, too soft for anyone else to hear. "When I made my threat, you believed me. I still do," I whispered back. "But I also believe in something else now. I believe that we don't have to burn anything. I believe we can build something instead." "Build what?" I smiled. "A future. Together. Whatever that looks like." The efficient stepped forward, ancient words spilling from her lips to seal the bond. The crowd erupted into chaos, some cheering, some protesting, most simply stunned into silence. But I wasn't watching them. I was watching Seylitha, this fierce, wounded, magnificent woman who had looked at a broken human and decided he was worth an empire's wrath. "Your Radiance," I said, using her title for the last time. "I believe this is the part where we kiss, indeed." She pulled me close. "Let us give them something to talk about." The kiss was not soft. It was not tentative. It was a declaration, a challenge, a promise. When we finally separated, the hall had gone quiet again. Seylitha turned to face her empire, one hand still clasped in mine. "The bonding is complete," she announced. "I'm no longer yours alone, Velanthi. And you are no longer mine alone either. Today marks the beginning of something new, An alliance between our people and humanity. A bridge between stars. She looked at me, her eyes bright with possibility. We have both lost too much to the old ways, she said. Perhaps it is time to build new ones. In the years that followed, historians would argue about that moment. Some would call it the beginning of the human Velanthi alliance. Others would call it the start of the council's decline. Still others would point to it as proof that love could reshape empires. But I never cared much for history. What I cared about was the woman beside me, the hand in mine, the future we were building together, one day at a time. And if anyone tried to take that from us, well, she had made her promise, and I believed her. YouTube description, 1,000 characters. A human maintenance tech is sent to the Velanthi court as a diplomatic gift, meaning hostage. In the throne room, a High Councilor puts a blade to his throat, and High Queen Seylitha does the unthinkable. She threatens the council for a nobody. Seylitha has spent 20 cycles trapped in a gilded cage, her mate executed, her children stolen, her throne controlled by men who rule through tradition. Then she witnesses a human show kindness with no price attached, and something in her fractures open. When she declares a bonding with him, the empire erupts. The council plots. Assassins come. And Seylitha reveals the forbidden power of the royal bloodline, not to become a monster, but to protect the one person who made her feel seen again. If die, I'll burn the galaxy, she whispers. He believes her, then chooses a different future, one they build together. An HFY royal court drama about defiance, love as rebellion, and a queen who finally stops asking permission. Keywords: HFI, FI, Sci-Fİ, alien queen, human hostage, royal court, bonding ceremony, high council, palace intrigue, assassination attempt, forbidden power, political rebellion, interspecies romance, chosen mate, empire drama, Sci-Fİ. Drama, space monarchy, humanity, fuck, yeah. Sci-Fi audiobook.